briefing of January. I'm Stephen Ridgway. So just a follow up from yesterday's announcement about the Trello API, the Trello scraping of 15 million accounts, usernames and passwords and so on. Oh, yes. Clearly a difficult day to get words out today, but let's try anyway. It looks like it was the Trello API that was used in order to scrape this information. Basically, the API is used, at least in parts, is used in order to share Trello boards publicly. So you can, if you use Trello, you probably know, but it is possible to have public boards or private boards. By the way, it's not always obvious which are which. So if you are using Trello, do make sure that your boards are private if they're meant to be private. There are thousands, literally thousands of very clearly private boards which are publicly available. So that is a bit of an aside, but definitely make sure you're securing Trello properly. It isn't as easy to secure. Well, it's easy to secure. It's just not obvious quite how to do it sometimes. So anyway, the fact that if you've got a public board, people, anybody can see it, or if you've got a private board, you can invite people to it. Well, part of the way that these, the part of the process at the back end around knowing who's got access or who has accessed what uses an API. The API was not secured in any way, so anybody could query it. So basically, armed with, I think, a modicum of information, you can just test it to see whether you get account details back. Atlassian's response to this has been, dare I say it, a little, I was going to say half-assed, but you know what I mean. They've basically now changed it so that you can't anonymously query the API. You have to have an account. However, you can create an account for free. So I'm not quite sure where we're going with this. I don't think that having to create a free account in order to be able to query the API for 15 million leaked email addresses, I'm not entirely sure that is going to prevent many people who have malicious intent. So, but it's quite interesting that a little bit more information has come out about what was happening. And again, something to think about if you're developing stuff with APIs. What information is available through the API, how it should be secured, I think is one of the most important questions that you should be asking as you're designing the solutions or the systems here, because this, whilst, as we said yesterday, whilst in itself the information is publicly available, it's not all publicly available in one place. This makes it much easier for attackers to subsequently craft convincing phishing emails that purport to be from Trello or about Trello. So, even stuff which looks a bit innocuous can be put together with other things in order to, in order for malicious intent. So, yeah, have a think about it. There's been a data breach of VF Corp. Now, VF Corp is the parent company of some very well-known brands, including sort of Timberland, North Face, and Vans. It appears to be a significant breach. It was actually discovered by them last year, the end of last year, in December last year. The information that has been taken, well, approximately 35.5 million customers' data has been breached as part of this. It looks like card details, bank details, and so on were not accessed, but it's a little bit unclear at the moment. It does appear that it covers pretty much all of the brands in the VF Corp group. So if you have been a customer of any of those brands and your data may be sitting on their servers, bear in mind that at least some of your customer data may well have been lifted in this one. 35 million pieces of customer information is, or sort of the customer information on 35 million customers. That's a lot of people. It is uncertain what the impact of VF Corp actually is, and it is uncertain whether this has had a direct financial impact on the company. It certainly will have had some reputational impacts. So yeah, just as a heads up, if you are a customer of VF Corp or any of the VF Corp brands, so Timberland, North Face, Vans, what else is there? Some I don't know so well, Supreme and Kipling, but JanSport is there as well. So there are various. It's a fairly big group. If you are a customer, then I would suggest that you keep an eye out. Firstly, keep an eye out for any suspicious activity on the accounts. And secondly, consider changing passwords, so on and so forth. Bearing in mind, if you're reusing passwords from one site to another, there is a risk that your user data has been compromised, you should go and change the passwords on all the other sites that use that password. But reusing passwords is a bad thing. If you really have to stick with just usernames and passwords, use a password manager and manage them all individually with long and complex passwords, or even better, or in addition, try to use 2FA wherever it's possible, 2FA or MFA of some sort, wherever possible, as it simply makes it harder, not impossible, but harder for attackers to gain access to your systems. There is an interesting article in Dark Reading talking about Parrot web server compromises. So it is a traffic redirect system, and it's been active for a long time, going back to October 2021. However, it there has been an uplift in the number of compromised web sites. So basically, what this is if a website is compromised and the Parrot TDS malware is installed on it, it has the ability to redirect your browser to other malicious websites. So it does this by injecting malicious scripts into existing JavaScript code hosted on the server. Looks like this particular piece of malware checks the profile of the victim to look for certain conditions, or in this particular article, it's unclear what those conditions actually are. It does not look like the attackers have a particular focus on any geography, nationality, industry, whatever. So I'm assuming that what they're checking for is the likelihood that your browser is susceptible to this sort of redirection, or susceptible to the subsequent attacks on the based from the malicious sites which you are redirected to. Attackers are most likely using automated tools and exploiting known vulnerabilities to take over websites, and apparently, again, the majority of websites that are compromised are based on WordPress. However, also Joomla and other content management systems may well be targeted too. So this comes back to something that we talk about quite a lot on this, that WordPress is absolutely superb framework for hosting your websites, and it can support some complex and very engaging websites, but it is important to proactively manage the security of WordPress, given the way that it's modular with an enormous number of potential plugins. Keeping on top of those is really important. Bearing in mind that, yes, generally you can tell WordPress to automatically update everything. In my experience, and in our experience, where we've seen issues around WordPress sites, it has often been down to the fact that some plugins don't update themselves even if they're set to, or can't be updated automatically and have to be manually updated. And there are complexities around dependencies. So there are, we've seen situations where some website plugins are simply not upgradable because they there are dependencies on other things which have either been upgraded beyond, and there's no path for upgrade, or they're held back because some other part of the system has not been upgraded, and so on and so forth. So keeping on top of it is important. There are some indicators of compromise which are linked out from the Dark Reading article. So if you are using WordPress, or in fact any other content management system hosting a website, it is definitely worth having a look. Feed the indicators of compromise into your SIEM or your security visibility tooling, and just make sure that you are basically okay. And you haven't been compromised, because this is, it is long-standing, but it is there has been an uptick in this stuff going on recently. And then finally from me today, a bit of good news. X, as in X Twitter, adds passkeys support for iOS users in the States initially. So basically, X announced that iOS users can now log into their accounts using passkeys. This reduces the risk of username, password authentication being compromised, and it does make it somewhat easier than memorizing long, complex passwords. Although, as I've said, it would be a very good idea to use a password manager, as quite frankly, the risks associated with managing your passwords through a password manager are, in my opinion, less than the risks of trying to manually manage what, for a lot of people, most people these days, must be hundreds of individual passwords. So passkeys, in this case, they sync via, because it's Apple, they sync via the iCloud keychain, which basically allows you to log in from various devices, so long as you're logged into your Apple account. So quite a good step in the right direction, I think. Quite how secure passkey authentication will turn out to be in the long run, don't know. It is not new, but it is new in broad acceptance, if you see what I mean. So it's been less likely to have been targeted than other methods of compromising your accounts. But however, at the moment, it does offer a good deal of security. Hopefully, X will roll this out to users outside of the States, and hopefully they'll be looking for other solutions, or similar solutions for Android and other operating systems as well. That is enough from me for today. I hope you have a good Wednesday, and I'll speak to you all again tomorrow morning.